Okay, very first shots with the P320-M18, and I'm shooting SIG Sauer's M17 ammo. This is military grade ball ammo for starters, 124 grain plus P. It seemed like a fitting way to break the gun in and warm me up. I love the balance. I've really become a fan of this short slide, full grip. And even with this plus P ammo, the recoil is managed very well. Okay, I think I relaxed and got myself into a decent group there on that steel target. Let's try the shooting tree. That always gives me fits. Damn. I don't know why. I always seem to suck when the targets are on the left side. I don't know why. The M18 is really just a shorter slide version of the M17 military service pistol. The M18, of course, is also a military service pistol. I believe this particular model has been adopted as the official handgun sidearm for the Marines, and I think I heard Coast Guard, maybe Air Force. And there are probably other divisions of all branches of the armed forces that are using the M18 in various purposes. The configuration by now is pretty familiar, and I hope it makes sense now to everybody who had a fit when the Glock 19X was introduced, and that is the shorter slide, that 4-inch barrel size slide, on the full 17 or more round grip frame. So most of the specs are just like they are for the M17, except for some of the length specs. The M18 as sold to the civilian market comes with one 17 round magazine with a flush base plate like you see here, and two 21 round magazines with the extended base plate like you see in the pistol right now. The slide, the grip frame, magazine base plates, and all the accessories are flat dark earth or coyote if you prefer. So the real difference is the overall length is only 7.2 inches on this particular model versus the M17, and the barrel length is under 4 inches at 3.9, and that's a significant difference. Of course, it is a little shorter in the slide and barrel, and that means the weight is also going to be a little bit less, just over 28 ounces. So it's a striker fired 9mm. Built on the modular removable chassis system, meaning you can replace this grip frame, this slide, this barrel, everything around that trigger group or internal chassis, because that's the serialized firearm. The M18, like the M17, has ambidextrous external thumb safeties. The normal P320 does not have that. The M18 also has the SIG Light night sights on it, which are among the best in the industry for standard sights. And the M18, just like its M17 sibling, has the optic cut slide ready to go. You just remove this plate. The rear sight is part of that plate, so when you remove this plate, you do lose your rear sight, and you mount your optic. It is cut for a Delta Point Pro or for the SIG Romeo 1 Pro. Unlike the first edition of the M17 that was sent to the military that had all coyote colored controls, this now has all the black controls, which is now exactly what is being supplied to the military as well. So this gun looks identical to what is being shipped to the military, with the exception of the roll mark P320 right here. Military model does not show that. Military model is also going to have some U.S. government part numbers on the roll mark as well. The M18s do have special serialized internal chassis that begin with the number M18 and then whatever the serial number is after that. So there is some distinction there as well. But under the covers, it is a SIG Sauer P320, and I've been a fan of the P320 ever since they first came out. I've got quite a few in my collection, and I like them all. I have to say that I do prefer this military-style trigger to the wider civilian trigger that we see on most of our P320s. I like the coyote tan finish. I like the color on the grip frame, of course, but I like the PVD coyote tan finish on the slide. It is a nice copper-colored, sort of bronze, actually, in a lot of ways. Very interesting and different. Every manufacturer's coyote or flat dark earth is always a little bit different. One of these days I probably should sandwich them all together for a comparison. But the gun feels good in the hand. It is nicely balanced. That's the advantage of that short slide on the full grip frame. You get that really nice balance in the hand. Okay, moving down one notch in power to regular SIG Sauer Elite Performance 124 grain ball. This is not plus P, but it's peppy stuff. All right, I'm going to go back to this tree and see if I can handle these flappers on the left. They say it has something to do with using the sights. This is a nice balance, a very nice balance. Feels great in the hand. Good sight picture, of course. With those SIG Light night sights. It likes a center hold, so point of aim, point of impact is right dead on center hold. At least at this distance, those targets are about 12 yards down range. I can notice the difference, of course, between the ammo power, but not a whole lot. I like the feel of this trigger that they have on the M17 and M18. It's a little bit different than the one I'm accustomed to on most of the P320s that I have. I guess maybe I still don't like this quite as much as I like the flat trigger that you're going to find on the X5 and the X5 Legion P320, but this is probably my second favorite to that. Grip module feels exactly like every other P320 because it is exactly like every other P320, except for the X versions, which are more square. This one has all the rounded features and ergonomics. It would probably still benefit with a Talon grip. It's a shooter. This gun is absolutely a shooter. Okay, a couple hundred rounds into this, let's pause for some thoughts thus far. I love the ergonomics. Of course, it is a SIG P320, so no surprises there. If you love it, you're going to love it, and if you don't like it, you're not going to like it. I'm really enjoying this configuration. That short 4-inch barrel and slide sitting on top of the full 17 round or 21 round grip frame, so you got that full size grip frame, just like the Glock 19X and a lot of the other guns now that have this type of configuration. Trust me when I tell you, this is not a gimmicky configuration. If you haven't shot a gun that's configured this way, you really owe it to yourself to pick one up and give it a try, and maybe you'll see what I'm talking about. Great balance. All the weight is centered in your hand. You don't have a lot of muzzle weight and things like that. The fatigue factor is less. There have been no failures, no hints of failures, but the ejection is much lighter with the lighter ammo. So this thing is probably pretty heavily sprung and meant to fire plus P military grade ammo. So the great news is, yes, it will handle plus P, and from what I'm seeing, it's probably going to handle plus P all day long. It may not handle as well some of those powder puff loads, especially for you competition guys, you hand loaders that are loading to just barely power factor. I'll test that out before I'm done with my hand loads just to see, but with 115 grain factory ammo, ejection is pretty light. It like bounces off my shoulder. P320-M18 is cut for an optic, so let's put an optic on it. I've already removed the rear sight and the plate that covers the cutout. I don't really want to go into the details of how to do that, but as you can see, you do have to remove the extractor, and you have to remove the extractor rod and spring to be able to get to the screw that you get to from under here. So you do that and you take off the cover. One thing I do want to point out is the loaded chamber indicator that you see here has a very tiny spring on it that you can see right there. You want to take care not to lose that because it may want to fall out. That goes right here. The cover holds that down, and our optic is going to hold it down once we put it on, but in the meantime you just want to take care not to lose that. I'm going to install the Loophole Delta Point Pro because that is one of the primary optics that this gun is compatible for. In fact, I would go as far as to say it was really designed around this particular optic because that's what the military specified. Now let me just see if I can get the screws started a little bit here, make sure I'm where I need to be. You can't be off by too much because the cutout and this Delta Point Pro are, like I said, made for each other so that it fits right in there. Alright. I'm using the Wheeler Fat Wrench, which is a torque wrench. It is set to 22 inch-pounds. That is what loophole specifies that these screws be torqued to. There's one, there's two. So we are now properly installed and properly torqued to 22 inch-pounds. I'm going to reassemble the slide, put the extractor and the extractor push rod back in. Might clean it up a little bit, get it reassembled. Okay, there we go. Loophole Delta Point Pro installed, ready to go, and I'll bet it's probably already fairly close to zero. We'll find out. We'll get it sighted in first and see how it does. I'm not usually a fan of external manual safeties on a striker-fired handgun. In fact, I'm almost never a fan of it, but if it's there, it doesn't really bug me. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. What I don't like are some of the ones that are hard to disengage but too easy to engage, and this one luckily does not have that problem. It is, for all intents and purposes, a slightly smaller version of a 1911 external safety, and so it's extremely intuitive. Flick it up easily with your thumb to engage the safety, and flick it down just as easily to disengage. And of course it is ambidextrous. You know, just like airplanes are more likely to crash during takeoffs and landings, you're more likely to have a problem, a safety problem, with a handgun loading and unloading it. I'll pull the trigger so we know the striker is not charged, and I am able to put the safety on. A lot of guns you can't do that. You have to have the striker charged on a striker gun before you're able to engage the safety. Once you engage the safety, the trigger will not move rearward, so it is a physical block on that trigger. However, and here's the good part, this is the part I like, you can still manipulate the slide, and I like that a lot. So what that means is, in practical reality, is I can take a handgun that is empty and the striker is not cocked, and I can put the safety on, and then I can lock the slide back. Then I can insert my magazine, presumably loaded, right? And chamber around, all with the safety on. So there's no danger if somehow, you know, I do anything stupid or negligent. The safety's on to help protect me from a negligent discharge. So I do like that the safety is very useful in that respect. If you're going to have a safety on a striker-fired gun, that's how it should work. As I had mentioned, the recoil spring is pretty tight in this pistol to accommodate all that plus P ammo that it's designed to shoot. So I'm curious to see how it would handle underpowered ammo. It was a little bit weak in the ejection with 115 grain factory stuff. So I'm going to try, just for fun, some of my hand loads. And of course, you know the rule, we don't judge anything by how it performs with hand loads, because they're hand loads. So my load is 124 grain plated round nose bullet, but it is loaded down to just make power factor with just a little bit of a cushion. So let's see how we do with this. See if it's any problem. Now you can see You can see the ejection's a little bit light, but not bad. Nah, no problem at all. So, if you load to power factor for IDPA or USPSA and you want to run this gun, I don't see any problem with it. So I did do a little bit of rested shooting, and let's cut right to the chase. The best group of the day was provided by Federal Premium HST. Actually, it was the best group by a pretty comfortable margin. This is the 124 grain jacketed hollow point HST bullet from Federal Premium. I got a pretty good zero on the Loophole Delta Point Pro. I zeroed in the Delta Point Pro using SIG Sauer Elite Performance 124 grain ball as sort of my general purpose go-to stuff. And I got it to where I was punching holes right in the bullseye. And I shot groups with 5 different kinds of ammo, and oddly enough, almost every single group printed in a different area. But they were all respectable, and again, Federal HST definitely won the day with this particular group that you see here. In addition to the Federal HST, which performed the best, I also shot the SIG Sauer Elite Performance ammo and the SIG Sauer M18 ammo. I shot Spear Gold Dot and Hornady Critical Duty. They all made decent enough groups at 20 yards, but on that day, with this shooter, Federal HST couldn't be beat. After a couple hundred rounds or so, with the Delta Point Pro mounted on the M18, you can see that there's definitely some clouding on the glass, and you can see, I think here probably best from this angle, that it is pretty much straight in line with that loaded chamber indicator. So that's one of the things that I'm not a big fan of loaded chamber indicators in the first place. I'm on record as saying that, but in this case, one of the things that I don't like, in addition to just thinking they're a useless feature, is that it actually is going to get your optic a lot dirtier, a lot faster. And you can see there, it's almost like a chimney where those hot gases are escaping straight up onto your lens, meaning that you're going to have to clean your lens more often. So there's the look through that. And you can see that it definitely starts to diminish the quality. Alright, so for those of you who wanted to see the M18 next to the M17 for comparison, here you go. As you can see, the grip frame is identical. The height is identical. The magazines are both the 21 round extended magazines in the pistols. The only difference is the length. So basically the M18's barrel and slide stops where the dust cover stops on the M17. So it's about an inch, maybe an inch and an eighth shorter. That does offer some tactical advantages for folks who carry certain ways. It also provides great balance and just a nice overall feel. Functionally, there's no difference. Design-wise, really, there's no difference between these two guns. It's just a matter of preference. So for the M18, in terms of who might want one, if you're a SIG fan, then you may want one just because you're a SIG fan, and it is a very nice SIG. If you've been wanting to get a P320 and you haven't been able to make up your mind which one, this might be one to consider. It does have, again, that very nice balance. Or if you just like military stuff and you like to collect things and have things that are associated to the military, the P320-M18, as you see it here, is the civilian replica of the government-issued M18. It's virtually identical, it's just not an actual government-issued handgun. So I put hundreds of rounds through this M18, starting with the M17 ammo, which is the military spec stuff made by SIG Sauer. That's all plus P. To the top names in self-defense ammo, down to the bargain bin 9mm 115 grain stuff, and even some of my hand loads. I did not have a single malfunction, not even a hint of a malfunction the entire time. The gun performed perfectly. So there's my first look at the P320-M18. This gun was a loaner from SIG Sauer. Thanks to SIG for that, I appreciate it. I think I might have to keep this one so we can look at it again.